Welcome to the Income Craze podcast, the ultimate resource for discovering innovative ways to generate passive income and grow your wealth. Whether you're interested in renting out self-driving cars or staking cryptocurrency, we provide expert insights, actionable strategies, and up-to-date information to help you achieve financial independence. This is Episode 1, How to Spend Just 30 Minutes Per Day Running a Backyard Beekeeping Business.
Okay, so backyard beekeeping, huh? 30 minutes a day to a buzzing business. That's what we're diving into today. I've got the source that claims it's totally doable, and honestly, I'm kind of skeptical, but also super curious. I mean, are we talking fresh honey for your morning toast, a side hustle selling jars at the farmer's market, or just, doing your part to save the bees?
What's really interesting here is that beekeeping, it's not just about the honey. It's playing an active role in creating a healthier ecosystem. I mean, you've probably heard all the buzz about declining bee populations. It's a big deal. These little guys are way more important than people realize.
Right. It's like that whole no bees, no food thing.
Exactly. They're crucial for pollinating a huge portion of our food supply. So by keeping bees, you'd actually be part of the solution.
Okay, yeah, I see the appeal there. It's like a built-in feel-good factor. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's talk logistics. Our source jumps right into the practical stuff, starting with location. Apparently where you put your hive is super important. Who knew?
Oh, absolutely. Placement is key. Your source is spot on about sunlight windbreaks and having a water source nearby. But and this is a big but. Before you even think about ordering beekeeping supplies, you have got to check your local regulations.
Oh, yeah, good point. Zoning laws and all that.
Exactly. You'd be surprised how many people get gung-ho, buy all the gear, and then realize their city has restrictions on beekeeping.
That would be a major bummer. So yeah, checking those regulations first definitely goes on the to-do list.
Okay.
Let's say we've got the green light, found the perfect bee-friendly spot. Now it's gear up time. And don't worry, I'm not planning on going full-on Nicolas Cage from The Wicker Man. But a bee suit, that's got to be non-negotiable, right?
100%. Safety first, always. Your source mentions the Langstroth hive. It's like the gold standard for beginners. That classic stacked box design.
Got it. What about the smoker, though? Is that a necessity or more of a look at me, I'm a beekeeper kind of accessory?
It's essential. Think of it as your way to have a nice, calm conversation with the bees before you start poking around their home. It masks those alarm pheromones they release, so they're less likely to sting.
Makes sense. So it's like a little bee aromatherapy going on in there.
Basically. You'll need a few other tools, too. A hive tool for prying things apart. A bee brush for gently moving bees. That kind of thing.
Sounds like we're going full-on bee whisperer here.
And that's the goal. The good news is your source is right. These are mostly one-time investments. And you can find almost everything online these days.
Amazon for your beekeeping supplies. Who knew?
It's true. Online retailers have made beekeeping way more accessible. Okay, but now we need to talk about the stars of the show, the bees themselves. Did you know there are over 44 subspecies of honeybees?
Wait, seriously, 44? I had no idea. I thought a bee was a bee.
Nope. They come in all shapes and sizes, each with its own personality.
Wow, okay. So what kind are we most likely to end up with as beginner beekeepers?
In the U.S., the most common one you'll see is Apis mellifera, the European honeybee. They're known for their honey production, and they tend to be pretty docile, which is great for beginners.
Good to know. Now, our source also mentioned this whole bee caste system. I always thought they were, well, just bees. Turns out it's way more complex.
Oh, yeah. There's a whole hierarchy happening inside that hive. You've got your queen bee, of course, the HBIC, the only one laying eggs.
Right. The queen bee makes sense. But what about all the other bees?
Well, you've got your worker bees, all females, and they do pretty much everything, collecting nectar, caring for the larvae, building the hive, you name it.
Wow, they really do it all. And then there are the drones. Our source said their only job is to mate with the queen, and then they die.
That's about the gist of it.
Talk about a short but eventful life.
It's a tough job, but someone's got to do it.
Okay, so we've covered location, got our beekeeping gear all picked out, and we've got a newfound appreciation for these buzzing buddies. But what about the actual work involved? Does this 30 minutes a day thing really hold up in real life?
That's where things get interesting. Your source does a decent job of breaking down the daily tasks, but even if you're super efficient, it's going to be more than 30 minutes.
You're kidding. All right, spill the tea. What are we really looking at each day? Because while I love the idea of kicking back and watching bees come and go, I'm guessing there's got to be more to it than that.
Right. Observation is key. But it's not just about enjoying the view. You're looking for clues. Are there any changes in their activity? Like, are there a bunch of bees hanging out on the outside of the hive instead of going in and out? That could mean it's overheating.
Okay, so it's like we're bee detectives, looking for anything out of the ordinary.
Exactly. And you got to keep an eye on their water source, too. Make sure it's clean and there's enough, especially during those hot summer months.
Got it. So beekeeping meteorology, what else am I signing up for?
Well, your source mentioned weekly hive inspections. That's where the real hands-on stuff comes in.
Okay, inspection time. So this is where I suit up, fire up the smoker, and channel my inner bee whisperer. What exactly are we looking for in there?
It's like a health check for your colony. You're making sure the queen is alive and well, laying eggs like she's supposed to, and you'll be checking the brood pattern. That's the arrangement of eggs, larvae, and pupa in the honeycomb.
Brood pattern. Got it. So what am I looking for there?
A healthy brood pattern is nice and solid. Not too many empty cells. It's a good indicator of the colony's overall health.
Okay, so we're basically beehive forensic scientists now. I'm into it. What else?
You got to be on the lookout for pests and diseases. Varroa mites are a big one. Those little parasites can really weaken a hive.
Varroa mites. Those sound awful. What do you even do about those?
There are a few different treatments. Some beekeepers prefer organic methods like powdered sugar dusting. Others use chemical controls. The important thing is to catch them early, which is why those regular inspections are so crucial.
Right, early detection is key. Makes sense. Anything else?
Yep. You also want to check on their honey stores. Make sure they have enough to get them through the winter.
Speaking of honey, let's talk about the sweet reward for all this hard work. Our source mentioned honey harvesting is a whole thing, like it takes a while.
It does. It's a multi-step process. But a lot of beekeepers will tell you it's the most satisfying part.
I can imagine. So walk me through it. What's involved?
First, you carefully remove the frames that are full of honey from the hive.
Okay, and then?
Then you use a centrifuge to spin the honey out of the comb.
A centrifuge, fancy.
Right. And finally, you filter and bottle the honey.
Sounds like a labor of love. But I bet that first taste of your own honey makes it all worthwhile.
Oh, absolutely. There's nothing quite like it.
Okay, so we've covered daily observation, weekly inspections, and even honey harvesting. Our source also mentioned that beekeeping has different tasks for each season. It's like having a beekeeping calendar, right?
Exactly. Beekeeping is all about working with the rhythms of nature. Winter is all about making sure your bees have enough food stored and providing extra insulation if needed.
Like tucking them in for a long winter's nap. What about spring?
Spring is go time. The colony starts growing really fast, so you might need to add more space to the hive. You don't want them to feel too cramped, or they might decide to swarm.
Swarming. That sounds a little intense. What is that exactly?
Basically, it's when part of the colony decides to up and leave with a new queen to start a new hive.
Wow. So it's like a bee exodus.
Pretty much.
As in,
It's fascinating to see, but you probably don't want it happening in your backyard.
yeah, I can imagine the neighbors wouldn't be too thrilled about that.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So as a beekeeper, part of your job is to prevent swarming by making sure they have enough space and resources.
Okay, so it's all about staying one step ahead of the bees. Got it. Now, we touched on pests and diseases earlier. Are varroa mites the main thing to worry about? Or are there other bee villains we need to watch out for?
Varroa mites are definitely a big one.
Oh.
But there are other threats too, like American foul brood. It's a bacterial infection that can wipe out a whole hive.
Yikes. That doesn't sound good.
No, it's not good at all.
Yeah.
Which is why it's so important to know the signs of these problems and take action quickly.
It's like being a bee doctor. Always on call.
In a way.
Yeah.
But the good news is you don't have to do it all alone.
Right. The beekeeping community.
Exactly. There are tons of resources out there,
Yeah.
online forums, apps, even online courses.
It's like having a beekeeping mentor in your pocket.
Exactly. And there are local beekeeping associations all over the place. They often have workshops and mentoring programs for beginners.
Okay, that's really good to know, because honestly, when you start talking about all of the things that could go wrong, it feels a little overwhelming.
It's definitely a learning curve. But that's part of what makes it so rewarding. You're constantly learning and growing alongside your bees.
You know what? Even though we've thoroughly debunked that 30 minutes a day claim, I'm actually more intrigued by beekeeping than ever.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
There's something really special about connecting with nature in this way,
Yeah.
taking care of these fascinating creatures,
Yeah.
being part of their life cycle.
You're totally right. It's about so much more than just the honey. It's about contributing to a healthy ecosystem, understanding the interconnectedness of all living things.
Exactly. It's about appreciating the little things that make a big difference.
I love that. It's funny, we started out wondering if 30 minutes a day was enough to make beekeeping a side hustle.
Right. Like, could you really build a business on that?
Exactly. And now I'm realizing it's so much more than that. It's about connecting with nature, learning about these incredible insects.
It's about the bigger picture,
Yeah.
the interconnectedness of it all.
Yes. So for anyone listening who's thinking, okay, I want bees in my backyard, where do I even start?
Tap into that amazing network of resources we talked about. Find a local beekeeping association. Check out some online forums.
Those resources are invaluable, especially when you're just starting out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to ask questions.
Ah,
Most beekeepers are happy to share their knowledge.
I bet. So much of beekeeping seems to be about passing down that wisdom from generation to generation.
It really is. It's about preserving those traditions and ensuring those little pollinators thrive for years to come.
Well said. I think we've definitely busted that whole 30 minutes a day myth.
Busted it wide open.
But in the process, we've discovered something far more rewarding than a get-rich-quick scheme. It's a chance to connect with nature, contribute to a healthier ecosystem, and maybe even share some delicious honey with the people you love.
And who knows, maybe this is the start of a lifelong passion for some of our listeners.
That's a wrap on our backyard beekeeping deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those curious questions coming.